serves as an inspiration for the younger generation, and also becomes a source material for history. Maybe at times not so serious, but yeah, at times we get good research material here, and we at the MCM library in AIWC, we try to collect all the material, and for the researchers, it's available, like today's program also would be available there in the form of a video, and you can see that later. And also the branches do a very good job. They do a lot of serious research here, and most of what comes out is in the form of oral history. Some recollections. It also makes us smile at times. At times it makes us think. So these are the this is such a interesting, that's how it becomes a very interesting program for all of us. Now, before we begin, we have got some very eminent speakers today, and a whole lot of family lined up. They have sent their video clips and are also present, I'm sure, to hear this. So before we begin, to recollect what our past president, Dr. Ashoka Gupta, was like, let's first, let me invite our president, Srimati Sheila Kakade ji, for her welcome address. Sheila ji, over to you.
Namaskar. Thank you, Yutika ji. Namaskar to all my dear sisters and presenters and the guests who have joined in today's webinar, taking us on the virtual journey with our beloved 32nd President of All India Women's Conference from 1986 to 1990, Dr. Ashoka Gupta. Shubho Nobo Barsho. Happy New Year to all the Bangla friends and sisters who have joined in spite of their busy schedule to pay tribute to Ashokadi, who has shown us the way of service. She is one of the senior members of AIWC with a long record of selfless social work, although specially known for devoted work she did in the aftermath of Naukhali riots in 1946, when, as a representative of the All India Women's Conference and under the guidance of Mahatma Gandhi, she spent almost a whole year in the remote rural areas of the district to assist the riot affected people and help restore communal harmony. She first came into prominence for the work she did in the 1943 Bengal famine in Bankura and other places, when, on behalf of All India Women's Conference, she was one of the pioneers in starting the Save Children Home. Her experience of rural work and her initiative, she fully utilized the opportunities afforded by the husband's periodical transfer from the district to another in pre-partition Bengal. She distinguished herself particularly when the All India Women's Conference became a campaigner for equal rights for women and other just causes. On the eve of independence in 1947, she was in the standing committee as its member in charge of civil rights. Her record of service in the development of youth wing of All India Women's Conference and as its member in charge of Constitution is well known. Her activities spilled over to other fields also. Many distinguished leaders and welfare organizations wanted to utilize her ability and expertise in different spheres. She had distinguished record in the chairman as the chairman of West Bengal Social Welfare Board for 4 years. In her work from 1953 to 1959 as chairman of the West Bengal Social Welfare Board, Advisory Board, where she succeeded Srimati Ramola Sinha, and subsequently as member of the Central Social Welfare Board from 1959 to 1969. Srimati Ashoka Gupta received the inspiring guidance from Durgabai Deshmukh, chairman of the Central Social Welfare Board. She first showed to her the various channels of social welfare where one's energies could be fruitfully applied. During her time as chairman from 1955 to 59, most of the pilot schemes of Central Board were launched and effectively introduced in the states. I would like to show some important uh, achievements during her period here. During her tenure of 5 years, with her keen interest and efforts, proposals for our Vrindavan project for all Matajis was passed under and resolved in the half-yearly meeting held on 20th June 88 in Delhi and was started in the year 1989 at Tarash Mandir. It is running till date, benefiting all widows, mostly from Eastern India. You can see some of her achievements here, very few of them, because most of it will be covered by our eminent speakers. But you can see
We can't see. Are you presenting?
Yes, you can't see?
No, I don't think.
Oh,
No.
sorry. I'll go back.
Yes.
Can you see now?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Now we can see.
Yeah. That's our 32nd president. Reception of Soviet women delegation at AIWC on November 1988. You can see Ashoka here. In 2007, Dr. Gupta was bestowed upon an honorary D.Litt in recognition of her work for cause of women and children. She was also awarded the Jamnalal Bajaj Award in 2007. Another great moment in the history of AIWC is unveiling the portrait of Madam Kama in the Central Hall of Parliament. The Parsi Pragati Mandal of Surat helped us in organizing this event efficiently and with grace. The portrait gifted by Parsi Pragati Mandal was unveiled by Honorable Shri President of India, as Vice President of India, S.D. Sharma. Ex-Prime Minister Shri Rajiv Gandhi was also present on this August occasion. You can see them here. Delegation comprised of Srimati Ashoka Gupta, President AIWC, Srimati Sudha Joshi, MP and Secretary Mahila Congress, Omanna President YWCA, and Srimati Priti Barua of Federation Abraham of Indian Women. AIWC felicitates Fatima Bibi in 1989 on her appointment as the first lady judge in the Supreme Court of India. AIWC President Srimati Ashoka Gupta and other members of Indian delegation standing with Alma Ata City Mayor at Alma Ata Municipal City Hall. Visit to Kazakhstan countryside. Dr. Ashoka Gupta presenting a gift to Srimati Laila Koshevila. Some of her publications in the path of service, memoirs of changing century, fighting spirit, Ashoka Gupta, impermanence of lies. And here is the old age home project initiated by Ashoka Di, 1989. These are the very recent pictures. Celebration of Holi at Tarash Mandir Vrindavan. And this is the stretcher presented recently, just 15 days back, to the old age home for their convenience. Young and old inmates of Tarash Mandir were taken for picnic around Vrindavan, Mathura in December 2021. They enjoyed the picnic to the nearby temples. You can see them here. This is for the sake of the family members who will be happy to know that the project started by her is still going on very well. Yeah. Ashoka Di had in her team Vice Presidents Srimati Sham Mohini Pathak, Srimati Dhrulata Parekh as Vice President from Gujarat, Kalyani Roy, and Srimati Meenakshi Ramakrishnan. As Secretary General, she had Padma Seth, and as Treasurer, she had Sarla Shah. For the benefit of guests today, I take the opportunity to tell few lines about AIWC, All India Women's Conference in the 95 years old organization established in 1927 by Sarojini Naidu, Margaret Cousins, Dr. Annie Besant, Maharani Chimnabai Gaikwad, second of Baroda as the first president, and Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay as the first secretary, having its head office now at 6 Bhagwan Das Road, New Delhi. Education and position of women in British India needed a lot to be improved, and hence the formation of a community of women to work towards improving the status of women was the need of the hour. AIWC has consultative status with United Nations and other international bodies like International Alliance for Women, Pan-Pacific South Asian Women's Association, REN, Infose, etc. Many institutions like Lady Irwin College, New Delhi, Cancer Institute, Chennai, Family Planning Association of India, Amrit Kaur Institute for Mentally Challenged Children are few among many others pioneered by AIWC, which are now autonomous bodies in India. All India Women's Conference also brought upon many legislative reforms in India, including the Universal Adult Franchise, Hindu Code Bill, Maternity Benefits Act, Sharda Act, etc. AIWC at its own level runs projects and programs implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Regular crash programs are run in the branches. Many branches are running primary schools, working women's hostels. Short stay homes for distressed women are run in 10 branches. AIWC head office runs working women's hostel and short stay home Bapnughar at 6 Bhagwan Das Road and a short stay home at Vrindavan also. You have seen the pictures of old age home at Vrindavan. The three trusts of education, health and senior citizens are separate programs run by head office. Awareness programs on communal harmony and peace offered by National Foundation for Communal Harmony are conducted throughout the country with AIWC's vast network of branches. Health checkup programs, anemia programs, socio-economic programs for empowerment, looking at the need of the hour, lot of awareness programs on gender sensitization, sexual harassment and legal awareness, environment and climate change, renewable energy, water and waste management are conducted on virtual platform. During the pandemic, our branch members spread all over the country, extended their helping hand to the needy in every form food, medicines, sanitizers, oxygen cylinders, vaccination support, providing accommodation for medical doctors and paramedicals, etc. AWC branches have provided counseling to the mentally disturbed in this COVID situation also. Under Environment Protection Program, branches have taken up various programs. This is just a bird's eye view of our activities. I express my appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Narayani ji and family members Mrs. Kasturi Menon, Mrs. Apala Gupta, Mrs. Rita Roy Chaudhary, Mr. Hemadri Gupta, Mrs. Maushumi Sen Gupta. Thank you very much, Professor Sati Chatterjee, Mrs. Dipali Sarkar, Srimati Yasmin Sen Gupta, Srimati Kumkum Muzumdar, Mrs. Kajal Rekha Samanta. My gratitude is due to our senior member from Kolkata, Srimati Manjula Di Ghosh, for providing required contact numbers of all the relatives of Ashoka Ji. My sincere thanks are to our team of Joint Secretary Supriya Bhalerao for taking the initiative in preparing the beautiful invite right from the beginning and coordinating with the speakers. Our library team of Ranjana Sujata, headed by Dr. Yutika Mishra, member in charge library, MCM library, and technical support by Ritu and Pradipa, our program officers. Thank you very much, all of you. I'm sure you must be very eager to listen to each one of the speakers and to know more about such a wonderful personality and get inspired and motivated to do more selfless service to the society. So now I ask our member in charge library, Dr. Yutika ji, to move forward. Thank you all and wish you good health, happiness and peace always.
Thank you, Sheilaji. Thank you. That was so enlightening. And we got a glimpse into the life through those interesting photographs, which I had never seen. I think it's from the library, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Her international work and everything is so beautifully collated there in the form of those interesting photographs. So let's hear more and let's start with our speakers of the day. As we know, we have already heard a little bit from our president, a helpful person, a guiding spirit, a person who would work at the spur of the moment. Wherever she is required, she was there, and she didn't didn't take a minute to decide what is to be done, what not, wherever, in whichever field. That's an amazing thing to do, and we need to learn that. So let's hear how all this started, how all this began. And for this, I would invite Professor Sati Chatterjee. She is the retired professor, head of Department of English from Jadavpur University and is currently there in Kolkata. She is the patron of the AIWC Kolkata branch. She was also a former president of the National Council of Education in Bengal, a former president of AIWC branch, and now a patron of the Kolkata branch. Her areas of research and publication are English literature, problems of literacy, Tagore's works, Dharma Shastras of ancient India, post-colonial cultural studies on Rig Veda, and on authors. She works on authors like Bankim Chandra Chatterjee and Sri Aurobindo and so on. Her current work is on Tagore, nationalism to transnationalisms. So I invite Professor Sati Chatterjee. She is going to talk about the early phase in Ashoka Gupta's journey in the path of service. Over to you, Professor. You can unmute yourself first.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege for me to be here speaking a few words about the early phase, the formative phase in the life of Ashoka Gupta.
Can you be a little louder,
Yes,
ma'am?
I will, yes. Is that helpful? Is that helpful? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Please unmute yourself.
Can't hear you.
No, she's
Voice is
unmuted.
not heard.
No, we can't hear you, ma'am.
Is it better now?
Yes, yes, now.
Ah, yes. It's better now, no?
Yes, yes.
Yes, my focus would be on the formative phase in the life of, in the career of Ashoka Ji. And the caption is the early phase in Ashoka Gupta's long trek along the path of service. Born 8 November 1912, Ashoka Gupta was 24 years old when in 1936 she joined the Dhaka branch of All India Women's Conference. 5 decades later, she became president of the AIWC for 5 years and remained a patron till her death in 2008. At Krishnanagar in the early 40s, she engaged in organizational activities. She set up a welfare organizations in Jessore. She established a new branch of AIWC in Nodia, joined fundraising programs in her area. In 1942, the third year of the Second World War, Calcutta experienced bomb attack. Families of friends and relatives, units of voluntary welfare organizations fled the city and sought safer shelters in the districts. Ashokadi, in the path of service, recollects how their Krishnagore house had turned into a transit camp. In addition to the task of feeding the steady stream of guests and arranging for them places to stay somewhere, or sending them off to wherever they wanted to go, was the pressure caused by the inflow of the welfare organizations. Ashoka recounts, Lady Abola Bush contracted me from Calcutta to find some space for her Nari Shiksha Samiti, Shilpa Bhavan, that was headed by Amiya Pal, the daughter of Bipin Chandra Pal. Sarojini Dotto Memorial Association, Calcutta Blind School, the Brahmo Samaj Training School, Sochindra Prasad Nari Shilpashram, and many others moved to Krishnanagar. My husband and I helped them in many ways to find alternative space and work smoothly. Ashokadi recollects her engagement of this time as learning experiences, the formative years and the learning experiences. True, in our school days at Dark School and later at St. Margaret's School, Ashokadi had imbibed the spirit of discipline, dedicated service, the motto, help all the people at all times, embodied in the Girl Guide movement. The path of leadership initiative, however, stretched from the mid-30s, the time she joined the AIWC and stepped into the public domain of organized social welfare activities. She later describes beautifully this experience. The stay at Krishnanagar, about 2.5 years, proved a formative period in her life. The Quit India demand of August 1942 voiced direct protest against the British rule, and Ashokadi was drawn into it, transmitting advice and instructions, secretly distributing pamphlets and handbills, spreading the message, do or die. Soon, Bengal came under the grip of the infamous man-made famine of 1943. Ashoka Dey and her family watched the calamity striding at their doorstep. Her husband, ICS Shoibal Gupta, was transferred to Bakura sometime in the middle of 1940, and here Ashoka Dey was drawn into the center of relief work for the famine-affected population. At the urgent call from Usha Haldar, the commissioner's wife, Ashoka Dey, along with the wives of other officers, came forward to form a relief committee. They developed a small clinic into a hospital. They started a gruel kitchen to offer at least one meal a day to the starving women and children. The effort drew high-level publicity. AIWC members were doing wonderful work. Srimati Vijayalakshmi Pandit, President AIWC, members like Urmila Mehta, Irenuka Rai, Fulrenu Guho came down to Bakura, stayed in the sprawling bungalow of the Gupta family, held public meetings, harnessed voluntary donations. One individual donated 1 lakh of rupees, quite a lot in those days. Next year, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, the newly elected president of AIWC, visited Bakura. Funds were made available and a shelter for orphans, the Shishu Sadhan, could be opened. To Ashokadi, all these were experiences of self-discovery. She records, when I stepped when I stepped out of the home, when I trained my vision on the outside world, I came face to face with such a terrifying reality that I was thoroughly shaken. It was 1943. Babies were dying in the Great Famine, along with many others. But I thought, could I remain aloof, uninvolved, do nothing? Looking back, I think that was the first time in my life that I had a taste of freedom, of independence, which inspired me to serve my country. When I began to work for the country's welfare, I felt I was able to discover myself. That is beautiful. I, of course, I found my path. It was hard work, but the happiness I derived from serving the child orphaned by the famine, bringing back a smile to her lips, such joy I had never experienced. At last, I felt that I had found something meaningful and a sense of direction that continued to inspire me through the terrible days of Noakhali, partition, and beyond. This is from In the Path of Sadhya. Noakhali. The great Calcutta killing in August 1946 had aggravated communal disharmony between the Hindus and the Muslims. Noakhali, a small coastal Muslim majority district in the Chattogram division, turned out to be one of the worst affected, trouble-torn areas in Bengal. Dr. Paramita Bhadra, in her article, Ashoka Gupta and the Riot-torn Noakhali, A Journey for Peace, Stability and Humanity, published in December 2020, uh, shows in detail how the uh, attack on the minority community had been a pre-planned one. And for a while, report of the atrocities remained suppressed as connection with the outer world had been cut off. Then, muffled rumors leaked out. On 20th October 1946, members of AIWC, under the leadership of Nelly Sengupta, President AIWC Chattogram branch, formed a relief committee. Ashokadi was a convener. The primary objective was to distribute food, clothes, and medicine to those who had fled from their homestead and to trace molested and abducted women. They tried to harness administrative support and to raise public awareness. They met the district commissioner, Mr. Carter. Ashokadi wrote to the editor of the Statesman. None of the efforts proved immediately effective. The relief committee then formed groups of themselves to visit riot-torn villages and gather first-hand experience on their own. Mahatma Gandhi, on his way to Noakhali, reached Chowmohani, Chandpur, and Ashokadi, almost on an impulse, tried to approach him. Women workers, Shuchita Tripalani, Renuka Rai, and others had gathered there. They were doing their bits, but the situation needed handling under every leadership. Ashokadi wrote to Gandhiji seeking an advisory session, and that took place in Sriampur village. Gandhiji's advice was that relief workers should divide and undertake the task of settling down, if required, all alone in the deserted villages and spread a message of assurance to those who had fled. This, the Mahatma believed, would bring back the frightened deserters and prove an effective step towards restoring trust among the two communities. Mahatma insisted on selfless dedication and determined effort. Think before you decide, but once you decide, no turning back. Ashokadi's decision led to 8 months long sojourn in the deserted villages of the coastal region, where homes, schools, religious places had been burned down, slaughters and abductions had been rampant, forced conversions into Islam had been organized on mass scale. The victimized minority community had fled. All this time of nightmarish hardship and toil, Ashokadi had her youngest child, 1.5-year-old Kosturi, with her. On one occasion, on a return trip after visiting club centers based on the ruins of a school burned down at Tormondol village, Ashokadi and the party got onto the jeep and started. The driver reminded them of Hopi, the little Kosturi. Villagers were running after the jeep. The jeep stopped. The villagers handed over the child to her mother. One of the major concerns of the relief committee, formed by the members of the IWC, was to trace cases of women abuse. But it proved difficult. Women and their families feared retribution and dared not disclose. The majority community tried to pass on cases of abduction as consensual inter-community marriages. In one such instance, Sujata Kripalani sends the falsity of the reported version and insisted that the Sahib inquiring officer, the Irish McInerney, should have a hearing from the veiled woman in another room where she could speak without fear. This allowed the woman fell at the feet of the Sahib and pleaded for rescue. A large number of such cases are recorded on the pages of Ashokadi's personal diary, excerpts from which are now available in the volume A Fighting Spirit, Ashoka Book. The relief and rescue efforts swayed between success and failure. Ashokadi records the helpless situation in which she had taken a couple to a police station to lodge a formal complaint. The woman was heavily veiled and spoke softly. Even 2 months after the riots, she was being taken away each night from her home by some men and returned at dawn. But at the Lokhimpur police station, they were too frightened to complain or to give the husband's name in writing. He would be cut into pieces immediately. The family simply left the area. Decades later, Ashokadi regretted, I did not have the power to punish the guilty or to protect the injured. At most, the volunteer group, including Ashokadi, Snehorani Kanjilal, Shucheta Kripalani, and others, could do was to bring back some of the deserted families, to distribute funds for rehabilitation equitably among the victims, to rescue some orphan children, abused women, and arrange their safe transport to the camp at Lokhnipur, to the Kosturba Trust Ashram at Kumilla, or to the Pravartak Sangho at Chattogram. To achieve this much entailed enormous efforts, extremely painstaking, walking miles and miles on muddy village roads, sharing night shelters, even beds, with fellow workers like Snehorani Kanjilal, moving into interior villages like Tumchor, inhabited by lower caste Namashudros. The effort at persuading the frightened deserters to come back and settle down in their native compounds was a challenging job. In the summer months of 1947, the villages suffered attack of a cholera epidemic. Medical help had to be procured, better sanitation had to be ensured. Snehurani's infant son and little Kosturi were exposed. Shoibal Gupta felt worried. The account recorded decades after in Noakhali Durjoge Dine by Ashokati and in Kichu Sriti Kichu Kotha by Shoibal Gupta makes a heroic tale of women stepping out of the domestic sphere into the most challenging area of rebuilding, relocation, relief, and restoration of faith and goodwill. The profile of one housewife turned into a competent relief work sketched by Ashoka in the Noakhali account is truly unforgettable. Snehorani Kanjilal, wife of a successful lawyer, the gleaning in an affluent family, mother of 10 sons and 4 daughters, was a quiet, soft-spoken, relaxed personality. She proved a tireless worker in the most trying situations, lightening the tension with a flash of smile or with a bit of the local dialect. She would readily start a prayer session singing in her melodious voice. The transformation was a historical The transformation was a historical event of the evolving role of women in India. Noakhali was far away from the corridors of political power conflict. Ashoka Gupta and her co-workers remained immersed in the effort at providing whatever amount of relief and redressal they could, while the country was moving towards political independence in a partition subcontinent. Ashoka's husband, Shoibal Gupta, was summoned to Calcutta to assist in the administrative arrangements, and the family had to move to Calcutta. Gandhiji had to rush to Delhi as communal trouble had engulfed the Punjab. His wish to return to Noakhali remained unfulfilled. The relief efforts came to a halt. The sense of frustration and despair rings out in Ashoka's account recollected decades later in Noakhali Durjoger Dine. All our efforts at Noakhali came to naught. It broke our hearts. If the land was to be divided, then who belonged to whom and where? Who would believe in our words of unity and peaceful cohabitation? The words of peace remained confined to Gandhiji and a handful of his followers. Noakhali was left behind along with the rest of rural East Bengal. The center stage for the high drama had shifted to the metropolis. The next phase of relief and rescue work in Ashoka's life would begin with the influx of refugees from what emerged as Pakistan on the midnight of 14 August 1947. The exodus, captured in the frame of Govindo Nihalni's film, Thomas. The early years had formed a personality competent to handle crisis, to plan reconstruction, and of course, to extend service, tireless, and self-effacing. The self-discovery, Ashoka had so beautifully mentioned in another context, the self-discovery, enriched deeply by the influence of the Gandhian ideals, prepared Ashoka to be in the path of service all her life. Our respect to the memory of our Ashoka.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Chatterjee. That was such a somber at times, that depiction of partition and the violence, the genocide, and the massacre that followed. And still, she worked there tirelessly. That non-deterred by anything, undeterred by anything. That is one thing which needs to be learned. Tireless efforts at rehabilitation and helping people. Any normal human being would just give in. They would say, no, this is too much. But then she went on. That is an amazing person indeed. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to invite our second speaker, Srimati Dipali Sarkar. Srimati Dipali Sarkar is the retired headmistress and is held the post of headmistress of AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapeeth Girls High School for 31 years. And she also served as the president of AIWC Kolkata Northeast Suburban Branch, and now is serving as the president of AIWC Baguyati, Krishnapur Rural Branch. At present, she is also holding the post of president of AIWC Vidyapith and is the secretary of SOS Children's Village, Kolkata. She is also ex-president of All India Committee for Eradication of Illiteracy of West Bengal and served as the joint secretary of Gandhi Smarak Samiti and was also a lecturer in Junior Basic Training College, Burdwan and West Bengal. Ma'am, you have also attended several international conferences and seminars, and you have publications and awards to your credit. I would like to invite you now. You are going to speak about Ashoka Di's work in Metropolitan Branch of AIWC, Bunyadi Vidyapith, and SOS Children's Village. Over to you, Srimati Deepali Sarkar. Can we?
Namaskar. I am
Yeah,
Deepali Sarkar.
Yeah, can we have your video, ma'am?
Yes.
You can switch it.
Babu. I?
No, we can't see you.
No, yes. ওরা দেখতে পাচ্ছে না আমাকে। Just
Yeah, this is fine. Perfect.
Namaskar. I'm giving tribute to my respected Ashoka Di, the soul of AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapith High School. Respected President, honorable guests, and my fellow friends, at first, I'm paying my respectful homage to Ashoka Di on behalf of All India Women's Conference, Bunyadi Vidyapith. India has given birth to great women from time to time. Ashoka Gupta, our beloved Ashoka Di, can be enlisted among them, although I did not have the privilege to know her completely. Let me pen down memories I have had with her. Ashoka Di was born in Rajasthan. Her maternal grandfather was a high-ranking official in the King's Court. She lost her father at an early age. She moved to Kolkata with her grandparents. She studied at St. Margaret's School and graduated from Bethune College. Her mother, Jyotirmoyi Devi, an eminent poet and writer, was an inspiration to her. Ashoka Di was one of the most prominent leaders of AIWC. I am lucky that I have got chance to work under her guidance. My contact with her had been since 1967, when I joined in the post of headmistress of AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapith at Belegata, Kolkata. Her confidence, fearlessness, leadership, open-mindedness influenced me greatly. Her distinguished personality captivated me. Ashoka Di founded AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapith with only 25 pre-basic students in the year 1953 to educate the children of industrial worker and financially handicapped family of extreme eastern side of Calcutta at Belegata. As there was no school for children of nearly 550 lower income group flat owners, she made an appeal for a plot of land to her respected husband, Shoibal Gupta, ICS, the then chairman of Calcutta Improvement Trust, and somehow managed a plot of land and started immediately construction of building for Bunyadi Vidyapith. Few members like Meera Dattagupta, Manorama Gupta, Shantana Haq, Shantana Sengupta, Ayesh Ahmed came forward for collecting funds, and gradually a small sibling grew into a tree with many branches. It runs now a high secondary school with 800 students, 2 units of primary school, KG school and vocational training school, adult literacy center, computer center, spoken English class. Now total number of beneficiaries is 1400. Gandhiji's ideology inspired her to run institution, and Safai was in the curriculum. She always told me dignity of labor should be taught from childhood. She believed that education for the girls is essential and it is a powerful tool in any developmental process, even though the picture is not high today. 42 million children go to school, while 200 million children between 6 to 14 years do not complete 8 years elementary education. So more schools should be established by dedicated members following selfless attitude of Ashwati. In Bunyadi, as the most children hail from slums and industrial workers, midday meal had been distributed for the very inception of the school. Students are trained up in Bunyadi for their all-round development through cultural functions, scouts and guides, inter-school competition, social service, Safai vocational training. Poor students received special attention. They got financial help through sponsorship program, cash prizes, and awards from well-wishers. Now, Bunyadi Vidyapit is regarded as one of the best schools in East Calcutta. Many eminent members like Meera Gupta, Manorama Gupta, Shoti Sinha, retired DI Bina Chaudhuri, retired DDP Ashoka Chatterjee, Pushpa Datta, Reva Roy, Reva Mitra were associated with Ashoka. Now the school and society run under the able guidance of Executive Committee following the aims and ideas shown by Ashoka. Ashokadi's whole life was dedicated to the cause of women. She did not enter in the field of social work as a stepping stone of political ambitions or for upliftment of self-status. She was an efficient and exemplary worker, playing an active role in resolving the organization's problems and helping everyone in tough times. A devoted supporter of women's rights, Ashwati worked for the empowerment of women, changing the lives of thousands of women and children. She always fought for the truth and never sided with lies and deceit. In the early 70s, the government of West Bengal filed a case against AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapit, claiming that a decision made by the organization was illegal. Ashokadi stepped in and worked rigorously on the case, collecting evidence in and winning against the government. She encouraged people to work for society and trained them for the same. They are now working in different branches of AIWC. She was a gem of a person. Despite various misfortunes, the work of the organization was not disrupted for one day. At the same time, she managed the family with equal responsibility. This one time I heard from Mahashatadi that Ashokadi was traveling to Germany as a delegate of AIWC. And to her surprise, just before her departure, she was cooking for the family. Bunyadi Vidyapit was established in the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi. Ashokadi was not only the administrator, but also the guardian of the school. She believed that the exchange of ideas was essential for the betterment of students and teachers, and as such, she encouraged and advised the students and teachers to take part in various seminars and decision meetings. In the year 1992, with the encouragement and advice of Ashokadi, I attended the conference organized by the International Alliance of Women at Athens as a representation of AIWC. On another occasion in the year 1995, Ashokadi landed in Kolkata from Delhi and reached our school directly. To my surprise, she said, "You have to go to China. You will be representing AIWC at the 4th International Women's Conference." But how could I deny Ashokadi's instruction? Her instructions were a word of law. Nobody dared to disobey. And accordingly, I traveled to China and came back along with a memorable experience. Ashoka Di was the president of SOS Children Village. She was the founder member also of the village of West Bengal, a family-based international orphan house where more than 200 orphan children in 15 family houses received care under the guardians of mother with objective of protecting the rights of the children in SOS families. The children are reared up with love and affection, and they receive ample opportunities to grow into a responsible member of the society. Ashokadi was very careful about all children and mothers. I am very glad to mention here that I got opportunity to work with her as a secretary of SOS Children Village. At that time, I found that she was very keen about the implementation of policies and guidelines of all activities for the development of the children. It is our fortune that Ashokadi lived a long life. She was an institution, a rare being. In recognition of Ashokadi, the social service, Jadavpur University and Kasturba Trust honored her with Dilit and Jamunalal Bajaj Awards, respectively. I am very happy to say that I have always shared a healthy professional relationship with her. Ashokadi is no longer with us. Today, thinking is absent for well-being of children and women. We lack leadership and guidance to show us the path for social upliftment. The ship has lost its captain. She might not be with us today, but her love, affection, and teaching will be our hearts, will forever. Her soul lived on forever, as Sri Krishna says in Gita, no jayate mriyate va kadachin nayang bhutta bhavitava na bhuva ajo nityam shashwata purano na hannate hannamana sharire. Bunyadi Vidyapit, we be really indebted to her forever. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dipali ji, for those enlightening words about her work in the field of social welfare, emphasis on education, especially for the needy. All these organizations. We are going to hear more about the other organizations now from our next speaker, Srimati Yasmin Sen Gupta. She is going to talk about Ashokadi's work in Mahila Seva Samiti, which was founded also by her, and Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust. Srimati Yasmin Sengupta is also the secretary and pratinidhi of these two organizations. Yasmin ji, can we have you?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It is indeed my privilege to have been asked by Srimati Kajal Rekha Shamanto to speak today at this August gathering amongst the stalwarts of AIWC about none other than Srimati Ashoka Gupta and Mahila Seva Samiti, of which she was one of the founders and remained an active, dynamic president till her last day in 2008. In this 75th year of the Shomiti, I pay homage to her indomitable spirit, her commitment to her work, empathy for the marginalized and the downtrodden, and her inexhaustible, the video is gone. I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
Yes, we can't see you.
Yeah, now you can see,
Yeah.
but you could hear me. You could hear me.
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Okay. I pay homage to her indomitable spirit, her commitment to her work, her empathy for the marginalized and the downtrodden, and her inexhaustible energy. And it continues to inspire us just the same, whether she's here with us or not. She was an exacting taskmaster who was aware of the strengths and the weaknesses of her juniors, but at the same time motivated them to put in that extra bit and more for the task at hand. There are a few of us still left in Mahila Seva Samiti who will bear witness to this. Srimati Pushpa Chaudhary, Moshumi Sengupta, Boshuda Ganguly, Srimati Shujata Roy, Chandralekha Sengupta, I'm a rather late entrant. I came in the 1990s. Mohila Shiva Shomiti came into being in 1947 in the aftermath of the horrific communal riots during the partition of the country, about which Shotidi has spoken in great detail. The people of Bengal and Punjab were the worst affected. The refugees from East Pakistan were pouring into Calcutta through various entry points. Sialda station of Calcutta witnessed trainloads of hapless, injured, sick, hungry, traumatized, homeless, half-clad people coming to seek refuge in a land after being in a new land after being compelled to leave their hearth and home. The women, children, and the aged were obviously the most vulnerable. So the immediate need of the hour was relief. The then governor of West Bengal, Dr. C. Rajagopalachari, and the then chief minister of the state, Dr. P.C. Ghosh, called on several women's organizations to come to the aid of these victims. Women's groups from different communities came together for the common cause under the name of an ad hoc committee called West Bengal Emergency Relief Committee, and immediately started functioning from inside the Rajbhavan premises, collecting clothes, getting them ready, medicines, milk powder for children and the infirm, preparing packets containing the relief materials ready for dispatch to the Sialda station for distribution to the victims. The heart-wrenching sights and reports motivated the volunteers to work harder for this relief work. Now, rehabilitation of these victims was the next issue to be tackled. The government sent the victims to various relief and rehab camps. The West Bengal Emergency Relief Committee started working amongst those who were sent to South 24 Parganas in the Baliganj state, the Chauhati relief camps, and a large number of the victim families were weavers. Hence, looms were provided to help the families get back their livelihoods. The other existential issues of the families was also addressed by this group of social workers who got tremendous support from civil society as well. Eventually, this committee was registered as a society under the Societies Registration Act under the name of Mohila Seva Shomiti, with its registered office in 8 Government Place North, Kolkata 62, which is part of the governor's estate. Right from inception, we have enjoyed the patronage of the governors, subsequently till today. The founder members of Mohila Seva Shomiti in 1947, when it was registered much later, in the 50s, it was, the president was Srimati Moitri Bosch, Charushila Dhar was the vice president, Labunno Prabha Datta the vice president, Ashoka Di was then the honorary general secretary. Amar Kumari Varma was the joint secretary. The lady you were referring to, Mrs. Shushila Shingi, she was the joint secretary as well. And Amini S. Menon was the treasurer. The projects taken up thereafter, after the society was formed, were all focused on the integrated development and welfare of these families, with special focus on nutrition, health and hygiene, education and training for all ages, and skill development for livelihood concerns. In 1960, the Shomiti was allotted a piece of land in Rajpur village in district South 24 Parganas, a good 25 kilometers away from from Kolkata. And these ladies, they would travel all that distance to set up and start work in that area. Today, it's much easier to access by car. Roads have been built, but in those days, it was really tough to reach that place. Particularly women and children at various stages of life and circumstances was undertaken in full swing in keeping with the capacity of the organization. It received assistance from civil society as well as the state and the central government agencies. So under one roof within the Rajpur Mohila Mondolo Shishu Bikash Kendra, there were activities which focused on the development and welfare of children of all ages, with programs on nutrition, primary education, health, fresh facilities for children of working mothers was provided. Education for all was a mission. So programs like condensed courses were undertaken to help girls and women to complete school at least or study up to class 8. Weaving continued as an economic as well as a skill development program, both within the Rajpur premises as well as in the governor's estate in 5/1 Red Cross Place, Kolkata 62. Other skill development programs were also undertaken within these premises, both at Calcutta and at Rajpur. Mushroom cultivation was taken up in Rajpur. Poultry was taken up in Rajpur for the community. Needle art, tailoring, machine knitting, all this was happening and simultaneously in both the work center in the Raj Bhavan governor's estate as well as in Rajpur. Then batik, bag making, and many other training programs are still being undertaken for community development and the development of girls, women in our care. She strongly believed that a weak person, given the opportunity, given the support, can at least fulfill her potential, realize her potential, and be of use to society and to herself. So within this Rajpur Mohila Mondolo Shishu Bikash Kendra, the members and Ashoka started a short stay home for women and girls in distress in the 80s and later received grant and aid from the government of India. Girls and women displaced from their families were put under the care of the Shomiti. Ashoka took special interest in the care of each individual and was concerned about how best they could be rehabilitated into mainstream society. She mentored her members and the staff as to how best to deal with each individual case. Mental well-being of the inmates was as important to her as their physical health. Ashokadi and her members established within the Rajpur Mohila Mondoloji Kendro a 30-bedded old age home in the 1980s as well, again in response to the need of the hour, when it was found that a retired worker no longer received love and care in her own home. She was a worker in the Shomiti. So naturally, everybody felt towards her plight. Civil society and some institutions came forward to support this endeavor of setting up an old age home, so which became, it was, in those days, it was perhaps taboo to send the family members away to an old age home. But today, it is a welcome relief for people whose children are living abroad or away from the city. Family Counseling Center was an integral part of reaching support to distressed women who are still within their homes but facing stressful circumstances. So it was rather than leave home, if they could be counseled, if they could come for counseling, it could prevent a lot of mishaps. In 2007, the Shomiti started a grant and aid program like the short stay home. It was called the Swadharya Home. And it had the same infrastructure, same thing, only the age limit was now 18 to 59. So later, both the short stay home and the Swadhar home came under the same sort of administrative, what do you say, budgetary allocation. But basically, the work was the same. Women would be sent to you, you would counsel them, you would try to see what is best, what best can be done, give them immediate medical help, psychological help, and then try to rehabilitate them. So all the skill development programs which continue help in the rehabilitation of these people. Ashokadi took special care of all these activities despite her mobility constraints. Her mobility issues towards the end was not a deterrent in any way to her welfare activities or her compassion or her belief that these girls needed to be reached out to. She used to take daily reporting, nothing went unnoticed or unattended. And towards her later years, the Shumiti received a donation of a piece of land in the Rajpur area for the specific purpose of constructing an old age home for women, because the 30-bedded home was full. So people realized that there was need for more. She was very keen to see the completion of the building, which was started with donations collected by her from various well-wishers and some committed workers. The first roof casting was completed during her lifetime. The then Vice President of the Shomiti, Justice Ruma Pal, who later became the President on her demise, had assured her that she would complete the project as soon as possible. And she kept her word and inaugurated it in 2010, dedicating it to Ashokadi, naming it Ashoka Niketan, a three-storied building dedicated in her name, stays committed to service to the aged. New volunteers have joined since 2008. Srimati Krishna Paja was a president for a few years after Justice Rumapal resigned. The current president is Srimati Hoemunti Dr. Gupta. The Shomiti received able guidance for some years from Mrs. Kosturi Gupta Menon as the vice president. Today, the Shomiti continues work with the mandate of Seva, which was such a driving force with Ashokadi. It had started as an emergency relief committee and way back in 1947. It continues to do so, only the canvas has changed. Earlier, it was people for displaced from their homeland. Today, it is for individuals displaced from their own homes. The mandate of rehabilitation remains equally relevant. Those it was to mainstream people who have come away from their mainland, give shelter. But today we are doing the same thing: give shelter, food, and counseling and training to rehabilitate the victims of maybe domestic violence or some strife which has made it for, necessary for the girl or the woman to leave her home and seek shelter elsewhere. Child care, livelihood concerns, skill development, and aged care still remains our focus. It's something to really marvel at that an organization established 75 years ago for the welfare and development of the underprivileged remains relevant today. Ashokadi's spirit lives on through the work and organizations she had established with her colleagues. All we today need to do is to be honest and committed in our efforts to serve the weak in the quest of social justice. Ashokadi's energy was legendary. One barely completed a task successfully, and she would be ready with two more tasks, impatient to see them completed so that she could add three more, which were obviously of equal importance and urgency. Eventually, her capacity to network. Eventually, I did get involved in Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust as well, because what was dear to her, she would definitely make sure that her band of workers have some empathy with that work as well. So she became trustee since 1973, when Srimati Lakshmi Menon was the chairman of the trust. Ashokadi remained a trustee till she passed. KJNMT for short was established by Gandhiji in 43-44 after the demise of his wife Kasturba, who he admitted was a source of his strength. So the vision was to have women workers go to remote villages of India to awaken Sri Shakti lying latent even within the hearts of an unlettered woman. And he wanted people to go to the remote villages of India to awaken Sri Shakti amongst them, which will finally benefit the families and the villages. Empowerment through education, awareness, self-defense, dependence, use of local language, local goods, khadi as a way of life, gramodyog, etc. He believed in prayer, a self-realization as a way of life. He wanted women to participate in the preservation of the environment, preservation of peace, harmony, and tolerance, to lead a happy and healthy family life in the belief that an educated mother would have an educated family, contributing to a healthy society and a healthy country. As this first chairman of the trust, he gave this task to the Sevikas to go forth to the villages with the mission to empower the women as a nation building activity. Ashokadi, a true Gandhian right till the end, was an able trustee as long as she worked there till her last. She believed in these tenets of Gandhi, and she practiced these in her activities, guiding the girls, guiding the Sevikas all the time. She had a tremendous ability to network amongst people and organizations wherever they were situated. I came to understand a vast understanding of rural India, particularly Bengal. We had heard mention of her stay in Bankura, and I have quite a few memories of her describing those scenes, as well as guiding me to do the kind of work the trust was doing in Bankura from much earlier, but I came into the picture in late 1999s. I marveled at her memory and her capacity to remember names and roads. She would guide me, give me graphic uh, details of where to go, what to do, who to contact. It was all imprinted in her brain. She rarely referred to a notebook. She just would, if I had any problems in the villages, she would tell me, go and meet so and so, and tell him about your problems, and his house is situated in such and such place. And all this was just in the computer right here. On the trust board, she worked with Lakshmi Menon, Dr. Sushila Nair, Shobana Ranade, Kalavati Tripathi, Dhirubai Mehta, Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya, Dr. K.K. Trivedi, Dr. S.N. Subbarao, Santosh Goendi, Shakuntala Chaudhary of Assam, Annapurna Maharana of Orissa, and many others, Jamuna Ghosh of Bengal. The trust worked in several districts of Bengal, and like in West Midnapur, it worked in a village in Balarampur near Kharagpur. Howrah, we worked in Pakuria. In Birbhum, it was a village in Batashpur. In Nadia district, there was Abhaynagar, right up to Darjeeling district, in the Naxalbari area, village Prashadudyate in the Naxalbari police station area, and Jalpaiguri in Nandigram. And we only added one Gram Seva Kendra after her demise, and that is in the Jungle Mahal area. That was in 2011, I think. She was totally involved in the work being done by the Gram Sevikas at the grassroots and would respond with useful solutions if she came to know of any issues. Towards the later years, she was unable to visit the centers, but she left an indelible mark in the minds of the Sevikas because they always knew that they were alone as Sevikas, minding the Gram Seva Kendras, representing the trust in these remote villages. But if they were able to contact her, get in touch with her with their problems, she would definitely solve their issues. And they lived with that belief. So today, together with the Sevikas of Kasturba Trust and all the workers of Mahila Seva Shomiti, I take this opportunity to thank AIWC for letting me speak about Ashoka Di at this juncture, because we are celebrating. We have not been able to do any celebration activities because of the pandemic, and this is the 75th year of the Shomiti. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin ji. That was such an interesting talk about the diversity of work, how much she worked and in what all fields. It's interesting to know, and I mean, it goes on and on. She did rehabilitation, skill development, varieties of skill development, various vocations, and upliftment of the weak, and then short stay home, and you go on, and in this KG and MT, as you said, So it's, and now the next topic is on the girl guides, scouts and guides. I mean, this is yet another feather in her cap, and a different issue altogether, a different subject. So it's so interesting. Thank you, Yasmin ji. Now I would like to invite Srimati Kumkum Mazumdar. She is the present state commissioner of Bharat Scouts and Guides in West Bengal, and she is going to speak on the Scouts and Guides. You also have a PPT, I believe, Kumkumji, And I would
Yes,
request
yes.
Supriya, will you show that? Or yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
And,
actually,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Shrimati Kumkum Majumdar is also a lecturer of English in Andhra Association School and Gokhale Memorial Girls College, and is a member and secretary of South Kolkata Constituent Branch of AWC. Over to you, Kumkum ji.
Thank you so much. Respected President and honorable members of AIWC, I feel very privileged to talk about Ashoka Di on a special day too. It's Poila Boishak. So I have some, a PPT. So I'll just, accordingly, I try to match and continue. In an interview, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes. In an
Yes.
interview given to the guides of Bharat Scouts and Guides of West Bengal in the year 2005, when the Platinum Jubilee of World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts was celebrated, Ashokadi had stated, I have been fortunate to have been part of this worldwide movement and cherish my memories of the days gone by. Srimati Ashoka Gupta, born in the year 1912, the same year Lord Baden-Powell, the founder of the Scout and Guide movement, and Lady Baden-Powell got married, was a true girl guide at heart to the last day of her life, aged 93.
नहीं आ रहा है अभी.
Next slide, please.
No, it is not showing yet. I tried it. नहीं हो रहा है.
Next slide. In 1928, she was studying at St. Margaret's School for her matriculation exam when she found a group of girls in blue saris in the playground. On inquiry, she found out they were girl guides and she would have to stay back after school if she joined girl guides. The teachers were only too happy to enroll her. Within 3 months, she qualified for her first batch, the Tenderfoot batch. She had been enrolled by one of the guide commissioners, Mrs. Molina Dotto, who had greatly inspired her. Next slide, please. Thereafter, she went on to undergo the weekend training course for guiders held at the Girl Guide Association office at Palace Court, Kidd Street. The trainers of those days were British, Scottish, Irish ladies, as well as Indians. By the way, the Palace Court, Kidd Street, the Girl Guide headquarters still exists, and we naturally remember Ashokadi as we visit it. In her college days, she was appointed lieutenant, that is assistant to the guide captain, Mrs. M. Ricci, in Duff School. Thus began her days as a guider, a trainer of young guides. She had stated in her interview that the school authorities would send a horse-drawn carriage every Wednesday to fetch her from Bethune College and drop her back to her hostel. Next slide. At this point, she was also sent for a senior guiders training at Uttakaman for 3 weeks, inspired by the motto of service, which the Girl Guide movement taught her. She became much more disciplined and became wholeheartedly involved in social work. As a result of her guide trainings, she became more conscious of her duty towards her country, family, and society. She realized that one's life should not be confined to duty to oneself only, but should be a life where one must serve others, thereby sharing the joys and sorrows of others. Next slide, please. Later on, she had become one of the stalwarts of Bharat Scouts and Guides movement, becoming the State Commissioner Guide from 1956 to 1967 and the State Chief Commissioner from 1968 to 1974. That is the highest rank in held in a state, the State Chief Commissioner, and which is very rare to be held by a lady, because so far that we have seen, thereafter, mostly gentlemen from the scout wing had held this post. So naturally, it was a great privilege for our girl guides when she held this post. In her tenures as State Commissioner Guide and State Chief Commissioner, she had brought about some landmark reforms in the working strategy and setup of the Scout and Guide movement in West Bengal, which include the following. 1953, she introduced Girl Guide activities in West Bengal run refugee relief and rehabilitation centers. In 1960, she introduced girl guiding in the tea garden areas of Duars and Darjeeling. In 1960 only, she played a leading role in organizing the All India Jamboree at Kalyani. And I believe that was a very big jamboree. And thereafter, of course, we have had one in Rajarhat, but that was an outstanding achievement on her part. 1961, during Lady Olive Baden-Powell's visit to West Bengal, she took her to visit the various schools of challenged children where Bulbul and Guide units were running. She had also organized a large gathering at Bashperia of Bulbuls and Guides from the refugee relief camps to honor Lady BP. Next slide, please. Lady BP had been greatly impressed by these bulbuls and guides. She had also initiated, helped by the governor of West Bengal, Sri Horendranath Mukherjee, in acquiring the grounds and buildings and establishing the Snowview campsite at Kurseong, West Bengal, which still remains, and we are proud to hold camps and other meetings at this beautiful campsite, Snowview campsite at Kurseong, which is a heritage structure, and the structure is almost more than 100 years old. And I heard that Ashoka Di was very young with her two daughters. She had stayed on, after acquiring the property, because 3 nights staying is compulsory and there was no electricity and her daughters were young. But in spite of that, she had stayed on with her two little daughters at this campsite. Under the able leadership, guiding and scouting in West Bengal had reached heights of excellence which are yet to be surpassed. Next slide. Ashoka Di, an extremely active, versatile, intelligent, and capable lady, was a guide leader who had never neglected her girl guide duties throughout her life, despite her myriad commitments as mother, wife, freedom fighter, and an eminent social worker. Her advice to the new generation was to adopt the motto of service and imbibe the joy of being a girl guide in their lives. I have met her in my younger days also and would visit her, and she would be ever ready to advise me and guide me. She has inspired all of us in girl guiding movement and should go on inspiring generation of girl guides. They should all try to become like Ashoka Di, a capable multitasker, a true girl guide, a hardworking person whose zest for life and work never waned despite her advanced age. She had associated with the youth movement for more than 70 years. At heart, she was ever young, even in her 90s. And I believe that she's still, wherever she is still involved with the movements she was associated with. Next slide, please. Even now, she still lives on in our hearts, a young girl who is just 100 years old. On behalf of all those involved in girl guiding today, a loving and respectful salute to you, dear Ashoka Di. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kumkumji. That is, we didn't know so much about, although I still remember we had a lesson about Lady Baden-Powell's visit and the girl guide. And I didn't know that Dr. Ashoka Gupta herself was involved in that and went on to become the state chief commissioner, the highest position anyone could attain. That is amazing. Another, uh, another area where she surpassed, excelled,
Yes.
like in other areas. Yeah. So nice. Okay. Thank you for that piece.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaskar. Now we come to the last talk in this segment of the West Bengal branch. This is by Srimati Kajal Rekha Samanta. You are there, Kajal Rekha ji? She's going to present the life sketch of Dr. Ashoka Gupta. And I have to thank Srimati Kajal Rekha ji for the several phone calls and, WhatsApp messages about this, that, and she very patiently attended to all of those and replied. Srimati Kajal Rekha Samanta is the president of the AIWC Bhagavati Mahila Samiti Midnapur in West Bengal. She has been the former zonal organizer, former vice president of AIWC, and also member of Short Stay Home Committee of the Central Social Welfare Board. She's also a member of the Association for Social Health in India and executive member of Karma Kutir in Kolkata. It is a voluntary organization for improvement of underprivileged women through skill building. And also she is a life member of Mahabodhi Society of India. Kajal Rekha ji, over to you. You have a PPT?
Yes, I have, but it is now about to pour now. So
It's
we
okay.
are
You can
eager to listen to family members. So what do you suggest?
quickly
So
we can go through the PPT.
PPT,
Yeah,
PPT, you can go through.
maybe in
Just
5 minutes.
a very good afternoon to all of you present here. I'm really very grateful to the President IWC, Srimati Sheila Kakdeji, giving the opportunity to take part in this webinar program on late Srimati Ashoka Gupta, the 32nd president of AIWC from 1986 to 1990. I must remember with gratitude here that Ashoka Di brought me to this great organization which has taught me many things with the emphasis on the problems of women in a male-dominated society. I also gradually got acquainted with various types of works done by AIWC and also came to know our illustrious past presidents whose affection and advice felicitated me, my work, and enriched my life. So, should I read all or you show the PPT? What do you suggest?
Maybe 1 minute each. You have, I think, 15 of them. So, no, but half a minute maybe. We have 5 minutes for you. You can skip this one and go to the next.
You just show the PPT. I think that will be, leaving time for the family members.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Next slide.
One minute.
You can just go on, Priya.
Can I read it?
Yeah, please. Please, yeah.
Ashoka Gupta grew up a strong woman was evident from her determined self-control and devotion to study. She had the first glimpse of Gandhiji, flanked by Khilafat leaders. At I can it the whole PPT is not seen here. At Calcutta School, she was exposed to various communities, including tribal girls. This widened her outlook. Next, please. Next slide.
Ashoka's mother, Jyotirmai Devi, was an unusually strong and talented woman.
She
Widowed at 25, she had realized the miserable condition of Hindu widows. She was determined not to waste herself in tradition-bound society without formal education. She started reading books. She got a pen friend who, through letters, used to advise for studying English and improve her Bengali writing.
Next slide, please.
Can you read now?
Holding meetings to make people aware of these issues. Ashoka, with her mother, joined such meetings. Uh, In 1936, Ashoka became a member of AIWC at Calcutta. Next slide, please. In 1936, Ashoka came to Dhaka, end of 1936, I find, where the branch of AIWC was quite active in social welfare activities in coordination with other voluntary organizations of the city. She joined them in their works. Next slide, please. In Calcutta, is a result of, oh, the whole PPT is not seen here.
In 1939, when they
1939.
were at Krishnanagar, when during World War II,
World
Japanese
War II.
bombed Calcutta. Result was an exodus of people and voluntary organizations to Krishnanagar. A branch of AIWC was set up there, and with them, Ashoka helped the people as much as they could. Ashoka had built up good relations with voluntary organizations, which became useful in difficult times.
Next slide, please.
Ashoka's baptism of fire took place at Bankura, where in 1943 she came face to face with a devastating famine. AIWC President Mrs.
Vijayalakshmi Pandit and Srimati Mehta, secretary, visited Mankurai. A survey was done. Ashoka joined them. She later on wrote, "The happiness I derived by bringing back smile to the lips of the children, such joy I have never experienced. At last I found something meaningful and sense of direction." Thereafter, Ashokadi never lost the direction of her life. Next slide, please. এটা কি চলে যাচ্ছে?
The AIWC team
Yeah.
visited the districts and set up 11 homes for destitute children. All India Save the Children Committee was formed and it took charge of the homes. Later on, Ashoka became its president. Next.
Next slide, please.
When Ashoka was in Chittagong with Saibal, a terrible communal riot broke out in adjacent Noakhali. With the help of AIWC branch, Ashoka started relief work at Noakhali. After arrival of Gandhiji, they joined his mission and worked according to the plan of Gandhiji. Next. Talk of partition on the basis of religion enhanced communalism. Saibal was appointed to the partition committee in 1946, and there were intermittent communal clashes, influx of refugees, and shortage of shelter, food, and other necessities. At least 80 organizations were working for providing food, garments, and other essentials.
Next slide.
AIWC Kolkata branch was established in 1927 with Charulata Mukherjee as president, Usha Haldar as secretary. Ashoka, as a member of AIWC, coordinated activities of the organization which were already at work, such as Gujarati Mahila Mandal, Punjabi Mahila Samiti, Maharashtra Mahila Samaj, Nari Seva Sangh, All Bengal Women's Union, etc. Lack of adequate space for work of so many organizations was a big obstacle. Eventually, Governor Rajaji allotted a few rooms in Raj Bhavan. Later, in Raj Bhavan Annex, two new organizations, Mahila Seva Samiti and Women's Coordinating Council, were set up at the initiative of Srimati Renuka Ray, Ashoka Gupta, Kulrenu Guha, and many other eminent social workers. Next. Organizations founded. Number one, Ashoka with others founded Bunyadi Vidyapit in Calcutta. Second, she founded Lok Seva Samiti at Kirpai Midnapur, where a branch of AIWC named Bhagwati Devi Mahila Samiti was set up. Third, Ashoka Gupta was founder president of Indian Society for Sponsorship and Adoption. Next. Organizations she was associated with: number one, chairman, West Bengal short stay
Social Welfare
Social Welfare Advisory Board
Advisory Board.
55. Yeah, member of the Central Social Welfare Board 59 to 69. Senate of Calcutta University 1948-53. Ali Sangatan of Vishwabharati 1956 to 1973. LIC Advisory Board 1966 to 1974, Trustee of SOS Children Village in Calcutta, Trustee of Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust. She joined Girl Guide as a school student and later became State Chief Commissioner of West Bengal. Next.
Next. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I think that's the end. Thank you. Thank
This
you.
is one, not this is last. There are some more.
Some more?
Yeah.
Let me just quickly see.
I think we should move on further.
Yeah. It's just an overview of what we saw.
Yes, it is all the.
I think Supriya,
Yes.
because we don't have much time now.
We have gone through this.
Yes, fine.
Thank you, Kajal Rekha ji. That was a very interesting overview, summarized very well. So now is the time to move to the next segment of today's program, Ashoka Gupta as remembered by her family and associates. Before I start this, I would like to pay my humble regards and respects to my teacher's wife, Professor Narayani Gupta. I know you don't want to come and you don't want to be here, but I have to call out your name, and please just open your video. I will present. Despite our requests, she refused to present this. So I'll be presenting the whole segment. I have got the video. The family members have sent their clips. So, Narayani ji, Professor Narayani Gupta, are you there? Can we see you? Just please open your video so that we can have the pleasure of your company. Yeah. And you can stop sharing, Supriya. Sheila ji. Okay.
Yes.
Sheila ji. Okay. Dr. Ashoka Gupta had the support of her husband for her social work, which kept extending to more and more areas as time passed. Her children and the extended family were also supportive. In their Kolkata house, the center was the dining table where she did her work, made her phone calls, and entertained informal visitors with generous hospitality, laced with her humor, which was never dimmed by the challenges and relentless work that she did. So we are going to present the first speaker of today, her niece, Srimati Rita Bari Roy Chaudhary. She is the daughter
Yutika?
of her older brother.
Sorry, Yutika, to interrupt. Before we have all these, can we just look at their pictures in a PPT? Shilaji has the PPT.
Can we see that at the end? Because
we can see them in a minute.
The end, yeah.
There are only a few slides. Shilaji, may I request?
Yeah. Just a minute. Yes, can you see?
Yes. This is the family. You can see the mother, Jyotirmayi Devi, her daughter Ashoka Gupta, and their children, Ashoka Gupta and Shaibil Gupta, and their children. Mr. Parthasarathi is the son, and Shakuntala, Kasturi, and Apala are the daughters, and Dr. Narayani Gupta is the daughter-in-law. Yeah, the next one. This is a life sketch we have heard about, from many speakers. We can skip this. Then the next one. Here are their childhood pictures when the son was in Oxford to study. The couple, Ashoka ji and Shaibal Gupta. Then young girls, both the three daughters, Shakuntala, Kasturi and Abala. And there's a beautiful picture of children playing together, Partha, Shakuntala and Kasturi. Next one, please. This is a very good family picture where almost everyone is present. Here we have the daughter-in-law, Narayani ji, who is actually with us today in the meeting. Then Mr. Parthasarathi is the son, Kasturi is the daughter, who's the retired IS officer and done a lot for artisans of India. Palti, then Mr. Shaibal Gupta, Mrs. Ashoka Gupta, and Shakuntala is the eldest daughter. And the children we see here are Himadri, Parthat's son, Mr. Parthat's son, who's going to speak today, and Sri Rupa and Nilanjana are Shakuntala's daughters. Next one. This is a recent picture. They're all grown up. Yeah, the next one, please. This is Mrs. Apella Gupta Egan. She's the one who made an effort to send me the family pictures and made them available to AIWC. This is her family. And we see Ashoka ji and Appala with the baby, the newborn baby, and the elder son, the two sons. Then you see Shakuntala ji with her nephew sitting in the central picture. Then after that, we can see John and Conrad are her sons. And one picture is with John's wife, Stephanie. And here it is, at a very young age, Conrad had a project of donating pencils and crayons for Indian school children. That was amazing. Next one. Here's some pictures of Ashokadi's work they presented to me, and I have put it in the PPT. This is a conference, 1990 conference in Calcutta, where Mr. Nurul Hassan, the governor of West Bengal, was the chief guest, and you can see Mrs. Shobana Ranade in the picture. The next one is the event at the Parliament, where actually unveiling ceremony of Madam Bikaji Kama happened. For that, Ms. Dr. Ashoka Gupta was invited, and she, in the next picture, she's speaking at the event. We see President Shankar Dayal Sharma ji and the Prime Minister Shri Rajiv Gandhi in the on the dais. This is the next picture of women's conferences at various places. One looks like
Surat.
to be in
First one is
Surat.
Surat.
Surat, and the other one is Gwalior. Next one.
Vijayaraja Scindia can be seen.
Okay, okay.
And Durulataben.
I see. Now here is what Mrs. Apala Gupta Egan says, that a number of people in our extended family have done some part-time voluntary work throughout their lives, no doubt influenced by my mother, Ashoka Gupta. So it has seeped down to the next generations to come, and then they have that sense of charity all the time with them. Next one, please. Here's this Betun College. It pays tribute to Dr. Ashoka Gupta. We see an event actually happening at the college in November 2021, when the family made a financial donation as well as the awards, which are seen, which are kept on the table. You can see them. These awards were donated by the family, and Kasturi Gupta Menon, the daughter, and her cousin Rita Bari, Roy Chaudhary, are seen here with some teachers of the college. Now, this college, we need to know that it's the oldest women's college in Asia and is more than 100 years old now. Next one. continues with some more pictures which came to me from Calcutta branch and MCM library. This is about girl guiding. She was very, very enthusiastic about it, and that has given us a sense of purity and sense of charity. Next one. Here she's seen locally, with Gandhiji's team, and this photo has been taken by Ashoka ji herself. This has been talked about in the earlier lectures. Then here is Ashoka ji at Banchi camp, Dandakaranya in Madhya Pradesh. This is also for refugees. There's another one with Lady Baden Powell and others visiting a refugee camp in 1961. You can see the president, past president behind Lady Powell. Next. This is an international conference which Ashoka Di attended on social work at Petropolis in 1962. This is it. My special thanks to Dr. Narayani Gupta, because she has done a lot of help, given a lot of help. Mrs. Apula Gupta Egan and also Kajal Rekha Samantaji, who has given me some pictures of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Supriya. So the next segment continues with some audio and video clips, audio clips mostly. And as I was introducing, Srimati Rita Bari Roy Chaudhary, she's the daughter of her older brother. And she recalls her association in this video clip. Rita had a long career at the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata, after which she was a treasurer at the Bunyadi Vidyapit, the organization we just heard about. And to again re-emphasize, this whole thing has been prepared by Professor Narayani Gupta. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being there. Even the script she has sent me. Very well prepared. Thank you. I'll just share the videos.
At the age of 5.5, my aunt Srimati Ashoka Sen lost her father to Spanish flu. He was the only earning member of the family, so my grandmother had to return to her parents' house in Jaipur with her 6 small children. My grandmother, who was only 25, was shocked to find that she not only had lost her husband, but she was no longer an equal member of any family. She realized that her social status of a dependent widow could have been different if she had had a formal education and could work for a living. She resolved that all her daughters, equally with her sons, should be well educated. This view of their mother influenced all her children. Srimati Ashoka Gupta's emphasis on women's education and economic independence throughout her life was a result of this. She also strongly advocated vocational training for needy women who were not young enough or had no time for formal education. My eldest aunt, considered to be of marriageable age, and the 3 youngest children remained in Jaipur with my grandmother, but she insisted that her 2nd and 3rd children, namely my father and my aunt Srimati Ashoka Sen, should receive good education. They traveled first to Delhi and then to Calcutta for this purpose. And knowing that separation from their mother was for the sake of education, the children put all their efforts into learning. They would get up early in the morning and study for 3 hours every day before leaving for school. Sincerity, dedication, and hard work became a part of their character. Both did extremely well in their final examinations. Throughout her life, my aunt Srimati Ashoka Gupta put this sincerity, dedication, and hard work into anything she took up as her mission. In her teens, while still in school, my aunt had to shift to the hostel of St. Margaret's School for a while. One day, she fainted in the hostel and the doctor realized that she was malnourished, and he prescribed an egg every day. Since this involved money, the school called her local guardian, who was none other than my father, hardly a year and a half older than her. He agreed to and arranged for an egg every day. She told me this story many times with a laugh every time. Possibly this incident taught her the importance of food in the life of children, especially girls. In all the schools that she founded or was otherwise associated with, she arranged for a meal for the children at midday break. This was long before the government-sponsored midday meal scheme. She also had a natural empathy and understood the desire to eat good food the children have. She often persuaded the owners of Rollick Ice Cream Company, who were her friends, to send ice cream cups on the Republic Day for all 1,400 children of AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapith, a school for children of low-income families. On the same occasion, Srimati Urmila Pasari, another friend, still sponsors a good lunch for all the children. My mother, who was 2 years senior to my aunt in college, was a great admirer of hers. The source of some of what I am describing next was my mother. When Srimati Ashoka joined Betun College around 1930, a section of the students were passionately joining the armed freedom struggle against the British rule. Many young men and women were giving up their studies in the process. My aunt did not. She was completely focused on completing her education. When she was approached by some students to join the movement, she replied emphatically that she considered herself not yet fit for joining any such movement. She also felt deeply responsible towards her widowed mother, who could be very well find herself in trouble with her father and brother because of the activities of her children. Temperamentally also, she was not open to the idea of violence. When she joined Gandhiji in his work in Noakhali in the 1940s, she had the consent and support of her husband, and it was a non-violent movement. She has written that while working in Noakhali, she realized that she had found her mission in life, and for the rest of her life, she remained focused on helping people in need. During her final year of graduation, a relative, Pachu Mama, brought a proposal for my aunt. The prospective bridegroom, Sri Srilakant Kumar Gupta, ICS, quite the eligible bachelor, had already refused a few offers. However, he was interested in meeting my aunt's family because he had read my grandmother's writings. My grandmother was not very hopeful about his marrying a fatherless girl dependent of her uncles. My aunt was equally skeptical. She agreed to meet him, but was not very enthusiastic. His position and the fact that he was 10 years her senior did not daunt her. Her answers to his questions were polite, but brief and to the point, with not much effort to please. He was unused to such a reception and was intrigued. But he must have been attracted because he did not refuse the match. He wanted to meet her again. After his third visit, my grandmother asked him to make up his mind or to stop coming. He made up his mind. She wanted to complete her graduation before marriage, but her family wanted to get her married first. The marriage took place in Calcutta, and after marriage, my aunt was taken to my aunt's uncle's house in Bhola town of present-day Bangladesh to meet his parents and other family members who could not come for the wedding. She arrived earlier than expected, and there was a bit of commotion in the house. All were getting ready to receive the new bride with proper welcoming rites. My aunt was always impatient, and she was not bashful. So after waiting outside for a while, when she found nobody was coming to receive her yet, she got down from the car and just walked in. In course of time, she became a very important person in both her paternal home and her family by marriage. Anybody needing help or advice came to her. She was always helpful and did her best. Though Sri Srivan Kumar Gupta was the fourth son of his parents, he and my aunt took up the responsibilities usually expected of the eldest son. She never gossiped or talked about people behind their back. Any criticism she felt, she said it straight to the person concerned. In fact, she had a very bad temper and quite often she shouted at them. But she always apologized later. Though afraid of her temper, everybody loved her because they trusted her fully to do their best for them. She was also impartial in her dealings in the joint family. I remember one day when I was about 5, her daughter Kasturi 4 and her youngest sister-in-law's daughter Pajupa was 3. We were creating a ruckus in her house. Annoyed, she pulled the ears of all 3 of us impartially and turned us into the garden, making no distinction between who was who. My aunt never expressed her emotions in public. Nobody saw her crying after my uncle died. But when my mother passed away a few years later, she said to me, Varda, as my father was called by his younger siblings, will know real loneliness only now. I have to keep myself busy by finding things to do. She had great courage, which helped her to carry on, in spite of the loss of her first 2 children within her lifetime. Very recently, her youngest daughter, Opala Egan, who lives in the States, donated money to Bethune College for an annual Best Student Award in her name. Opala also gave a Godrej steel almirah kept in the archives of Bethune College, which holds a photograph of hers and all the mementos, trophies, and plaques received from various organizations in her lifetime in recognition of her social work. I love my aunt and miss her a lot.
That was Rita ji.
Yes, very nice.
She has also shared a few pictures. I think I can show that. So interesting, you know.
It was very nice.
Very nice.
Showing the pictures?
Yes, 2, 3 pictures. This is the grandmother, you know, the
Ah,
mother of
That's
Ashoka.
Ashoka ji's mother,
Jyotirmai.
মাঝখানে
And
ছবিটা দেখা
there's
যাচ্ছে না।
Jyotirmai Devi.
another picture here.
একটু ওখানে কাটসারটা সব গ্যাসের বসেই থাকতো আর কিচ্ছু পারো না লোক দেখছো তো কিরকম ভাবে করছে
Then there is another picture. Yeah, this is the family of Srimati Roy Chaudhary, Rita
ah.
Roy
Oh,
Chaudhary.
yes.
Yeah.
Ashoka Di.
Ashoka Di, her brother. This is Rita ji and her mother and her brother. So this is Ashoka ji's brother's family, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a very interesting piece she has sent about the awards that she had. All the awards,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Yes.
huge collection of lovely looking with a small picture. So this is what we had from the niece. Now we go over to the second member. Before that, there's a small piece about the family which Narayani ji has provided. Ashoka and Shaibal Gupta had 4 children, each of whom followed a different trajectory. Parthasathi went on after his education at Kolkata Presidency College and at Oxford to a long distinguished career as professor of history at Delhi University. Shakuntala, the second sibling, the second daughter, likewise in physiology, leading to a career of teaching and research at Kolkata University, and was an active participant in the National Science Congress. In many ways, a right hand to her mother, she worked with her in the Bharat Scouts and Guides and received the Silver Elephant, its highest award, in 1999. Both Partha and Kunta, Shakuntala ji, as she was known, passed away in the 1960s in Ashoka ji's lifetime. So we have a short clip by the second daughter, Kasturi Gupta Menon. Her second daughter completed her MA in English Literature from Presidency College, Kolkata University. Before joining the IAS, her career was marked by tireless work in the districts and then in Delhi, where she was Development Commissioner Handicrafts. She left her mark on the Ministry of Culture, where she was Joint Secretary, imparting both professionalism and quality to institutions like the National Museum and the Archaeological Survey of India. Retiring after a stint as secretary in the Ministry of Women and Child Welfare, she was appointed president of the Crafts Council of India also, and assignment she enjoyed and gave unstintingly to it. She was conferred the prestigious Kamala Award in 1918 after Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. If we remember, she had set up this Crafts Council of India. She lives in Kolkata with her husband now. She takes us back to her childhood when she was with her mother in the daunting atmosphere of Noakhali. So I'll just share that video now. Just give me a second. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we can.
মাঝখানটা এমন ব্লক হয়ে আছে কারো মুখ দেখা যাচ্ছে
Can't hear.
That's the maximum. Yeah, now?
I know.
One second.
I told you that day. It's not clear.
A vivid account of the life times with a memoirs called In the Path of Service, Memories of Changes.
Not clear.
It's an account of the child.
Actually, it was coming well without this screen share. So I thought with the screen share, it's
Okay.
Was the former president of the AIWC from 1986 to 1990. Left behind a vivid account of the life in times, in memoirs called In the Path of Service, Memories of Changes. Printed in 2005, it gives an account of the childhood up to her marriage in 1932 to her father, who was an officer of the Indian Civil Service. The years between the two world wars, the critical years of the Bengal famine, and finally the pre-March riots in strike before India was divided into two nations, which led to the mass migration from one end to another. I was born in December 1944 when my father was supposed to be which had been at the center of the great Bengal famine, and where one got drawn into practice of this family. But by the middle of the following year, God's all this stand as discontent. Family moved. What to stay.
yes. Can you? Are you saying something? Yeah.
What the World War II was just over.
Can't you hear? Not clear.
No.
Maybe you could read out the text.
Okay.
Yes, it's not clear.
That's a better idea. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. The other day it was okay without screen share, but anyway, I'll just read out what Kasturi Gupta Menon has written about Ashoka ji. My mother, Ashoka Gupta, who was the former president of the AIWC from 1986 to 1990, left behind a vivid account of her life and times in her memoirs called The Path of Service, Memories of a Changing Century. Printed in 2005, it gives an account of her childhood up to her marriage in 1932 to my father, who was an officer of the ICS, the years between the two world wars, the critical years of the Bengal famine, and finally the pre-partition riots and communal strife before India was divided into two sovereign nations, which led to the mass migration of people from one end of the country to another. I was born in December 1944 when my father was still posted as the district judge in Bankura, which had been the epicenter of the Great Bengal famine 1942-44, and where Ma got drawn into active social service with the famine relief work. But by the middle of this following year, Baba received fresh transfer orders, this time as district judge Chittagong, and the family moved to the easternmost flank of what was then still known as East Bengal. Although the World War II was just over, in Ma's words, Chittagong was bursting with jeeps, soldiers, and army personnel as the town had been very close to the war front. In 1946, communal trouble began to ferment, and stories of abduction of Hindu girls began to filter in, particularly from Noakhali. Hindu families were fleeing from their villages, and relief camps under the AWC's different branches were set up. Like in Bankura, Ma's services were once again enlisted, and she plunged wholeheartedly into reaching relief material into the affected parts. Noakhali was hit the worst and was out of bounds as per diktat of the then Divisional Commissioner, Mr. Carter. It was only when Acharya Kripalani himself expressed a wish to visit Noakhali that access was allowed. The communal riots were so ferocious and frequent that in November 1946, Gandhiji himself reached Chandpur. He directed all the relief workers to go and live in the affected villages. For, to quote his words, courage like fear was contagious, and the presence of relief workers would give confidence to the terror-stricken villagers. My mother, who had been associated with the relief work in the affected villages in and around Noakhali, in her capacity as a member of the AWC, was keen to go, but had me to consider, as I was just then 1.5 years old. She was on the horns of a dilemma, as I would obviously have to be left behind. However, Gandhiji solved the problem in his inimitable way by suggesting that she take me along, and so I accompanied her when she finally left Chittagong for Tumchar camp, where we stayed for over 18 months, leaving my brother and sister with my father. Ma's Noakhali exposure was like a watershed in her life, a hands-on experience that would stand in her stead forever after. Among the many lessons learned from Gandhiji was his passion for cleanliness, his insistence on punctuality, which he would enforce through his famous pocket watch, his frugal Spartan meals, and his total commitment to a secular India. And so the months passed, but so focused was Ma on her relief work that she failed to hear the distant knell of the partition lines being drawn up until Baba himself was summoned to Calcutta to work for the partition committee later in the year. And so, with a heavy heart, after a year and a half at Noakhali, Ma returned to Chittagong. My own memories of Noakhali and Chittagong are sepia images of a distant past, of a red brick two-storied bungalow flanked by a long marble veranda of a hand-cranked HMV gramophone standing on the lobby at the head of the staircase with its stack of 78 RPM records and the echo of the Raghupati Raghav refrain, to which I would lend my shrill treble during evening prayers at the camp. This is this is Kasturi. What a lovely piece.
Yes.
Has written. Okay, now I will.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece.
I wish we could hear it in her own, but anyway. Now we go to the next recording, and that is of the youngest daughter. Ashokadi's youngest daughter is Apala, about which we just heard. After school in Kolkata, she moved to Delhi for her college education, completing an MA in economics, after which she was awarded a Rotary scholarship to the USA. She lives in San Jose, California with her husband. She has taught economics, translated a number of Ashokadi's mother, Jyotirmai Devi's Bengali writings, a selection of which will be published later this year by Neogi, and gave unremitting help to the Indian subcontinent partition documentation project. That's a very interesting, important, and very useful project. So I'm going to share her voice, which we have here. She has sent her recording. It's good that everyone has sent their recordings, very carefully done by
Narayaniji.
Narayaniji. Yeah. So can you see this one here?
Yes.
Yeah. I have the voice on this. She sent some pictures, and this is the soundtrack.
My earliest memory is of accompanying my mother to the AIWC Bunyadi Vidyapith School in Velaghata, Calcutta. That was before I had even started going to school. Another memory, while I was growing up, is how deeply influenced my mother was by her mother, Jyotirmoy Devi Sen's experiences as a young widow and by her writings. Yet another memory is visiting Dandakaranya in Orissa in the mid-1960s, where the refugees who were fleeing persecution in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, were being resettled. My mother was active with rehabilitation efforts, and that is also where I met Dr. Shankar Ghosh. He had worked with refugees even during the aftermath of the partition in 1947, and
What happened?
my parents. As a matter of interest, his younger brother, Professor Shopushachi Ghosh Dastidar, and his wife Shefali, both from New York, run the Indian Subcontinental Partition and Documentation Project, ISPAD, and Probini. ISPAD collects oral histories of the partition free of charge. Probini supports schools helping children from marginalized communities in West Bengal, Assam, Mizoram, and Bangladesh. As an adult, I have lived overseas. Over the years, however, I would regularly send my mother brightly colored, basic children's books and also made financial donations for various projects. In addition, I have also made financial donations to Probini, mentioned earlier, for their schools and teachers. I encouraged my children when they were in high school to engage in community service work. In America, some schools encourage teenagers to do service work in the community. My older son, John William Gupta Egan, speaks about his teenage years in high school. He says, "My mother encouraged us to engage in community service because Didima instilled the ethic of service to my mother. I volunteered at the Sacred Heart Community Service Center in San Jose, California for over 4 years. Often, there are struggling families who can pay rent but have little money to buy food. There are also those who have lost their jobs and need help to make ends meet. I bagged bread, tinned food, fresh food, fruit, and vegetables for those in need. It was indeed a very rewarding experience for me to help people. As an adult, I have donated funds for specific projects in India and Vietnam. My younger son is Conrad James Gupta Egan, and he also speaks of his time when he was a teenager in high school. This is what he said in his own words. "When I visited India as a youngster, I was dismayed to learn that children in some remote village schools may not have basic school supplies. Therefore, every year, over a 4-year period when I was in high school, I collected bags of extra pencils, colored pencils, and crayons from my former elementary school teachers. Through my mother, who made regular visits to India to see Didima, I sent suitcase loads of pencils and other supplies. These were for schools in Bengal run by AIWC, Mahila Seva Samiti, Lok Seva Samiti, and Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust. Also, on one occasion, I donated pencils to another Indian organization when they visited California. This may have taken less of my time than my other volunteer activities, but it has been the most significant for me. During my high school years, I also regularly volunteered at the United States National Wildlife Refuge in Alviso. As an adult, I have donated funds for specific projects in India." Now, again, this is Apala Gupta Egan speaking. "My observations and conclusions are that most people nowadays have limited time to devote their entire lives to voluntary social work. Nevertheless, as I have observed in America, people can spend a little extra time or make donations to projects that are meaningful to them. In my case, my interests lie in children's education as well as in supporting artisans." My belief is that the many kinds of beautiful products created by our artisans are part of India's heritage. I believe that we should support our artisans who make products that are environmentally friendly and also beautiful. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, inspired by Gandhi, played a leading role in the founding of cottage industries. Thus, the simple act of purchasing goods from local craftsmen, either as gifts or for personal use, is in itself an act of service to India.
That's it. So, this work has percolated down to the family, and now we come to the grandchildren. Ashoka, these 7 grandchildren are scattered across India and other countries. In each of them, in different ways, we can see her qualities, integrity, energy, and the capacity for making one's vocation a way of life. One can see the grandmother's eyes lighting up when she hears about Upahar, a multicultural catering business in Pennsylvania launched by Shakuntala's daughter, Sri Rupa, and approving of the choice of unspoken assumption of social stereotypes, this is the title, as a subject of research by her sister, Neelanjana, professor of social psychology at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Her pride in Kasturi's son, Raghubir, counted as one of the country's leading lawyers, whom she had taken care of as a little boy. Patha's daughter, Niharika, with the International Research Division of the IICC, India International Center, has a sense of service and empathy, and her work on philosophical, literary, and performing cultures would have delighted her grandmother. Her
Ritika has gone silent.
Yutika ji?
Ritika?
Yutika, what
Yes.
happened?
Internet?
Internet problem? We couldn't hear you for some time.
Oh, maybe I didn't realize. Must be internet, yeah. This happens. I'll just show you Himadri's piece. Just a moment.
My memories of my grandmother.
Can you see here?
Yes.
My memories of my grandmother are of someone who is always on the go, always meeting people. She was a member of so many organizations, both in Bengal and nationally. And so in the late 70s and early 80s, when we were the grandchildren, we were often taken along with her. She liked to take us along as a kind of side luggage in these trips. And I have memories of driving deep into rural Bengal, in the ambassador cars of that era, and visiting the various organizations that she was involved with. For example, the SOS Children's Shelter, where it was really striking to see how all these children were so fond of her and how she remembered little details about each one of their lives and what they and their background and where they came from. And or sitting in a village on the side of the road in the hot summer of Bengal, drinking coconut water out of gourds while she was organizing whatever small women's organization was found in that village or town with her usual authority. And that's one thing that I still remember very much about Thamma, is how she was always able to know the particular circumstances or problems of whatever person she was talking with or dealing with, and to express her suggestions, support, her ideas to them with great warmth, vigor, and goodwill. And that's my memory of her, someone who's got a really was a real spark for life, and totally giving and with so much warmth and concern for others.
That was, he must have been very young. Professor Narayani Gupta can enlighten us about that. And then still he remembers, so much about the grandmom. Yeah, he must have been very young at that time.
I'm sorry we didn't get the other grandchildren. They were too busy.
Yeah, but they would have loved to send. Maybe you can send some later. It's so good to hear all. So we come to the final, piece from the family side. This is Srimati Maushumi Sengupta, a junior colleague. Maushumi Sengupta, a postgraduate in economics from Jadavpur University, is a social worker and a mother of two. She had the privilege of working closely with Srimati Ashoka Gupta. She fondly remembers the affection and guidance she received from her. I will just share that thing with you. So can you see this? Yeah.
Yes.
This is Maushumi ji. Let's put this on slideshow.
It was organized in Kolkata by Ashoka. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored and humbled that I have been given this opportunity to share with you my memoirs of Ashoka. When you have lived 23 years under someone's tutelage, presenting a brief memoirs of them at one go is never easy. But in the next few minutes, I will try my best to provide an insight into Ashokadi's working life as I have seen through my eyes. I had met Ashokadi for the first time at Boroma's house at Entally, Kolkata. Gradually, my involvement in social work brought me close to her. I joined Lok Seva Samiti, Kidpai, West Bengal. This had been created by two remarkable people, Annodar Prasad Chaudhuri, Babuji, and his wife, Hiranbala Chaudhuri, Boroma. They had been close to Ashokadi and her husband, Sri Shoibal Gupta, from long before independence. Ashokadi was the president of many organizations, SOS Children Village, Mahila Seva Samiti, Bunyadi Vidyapit, Indian Society for Sponsorship and Adoption, and Ananda Ashram, among others. Lok Seva Samiti was one of them. What differentiated it from the others was that it was a rural project in the tribal belt, very near to Bishingo village, West Bengal, the birthplace of eminent social reformer Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. In the year that she was president of All India Women's Conference 1986 to 1990, she opened a short stay home at Kidpai, AIWC Bhagavati Devi Mahila Samiti, that gave shelter to destitute women. The first batch was 18 women with their children from Lilua home. Most of them were mentally disturbed, their children malnourished under Ashokadi's guidance. We managed to bring the difficult situation under control. Later, we sent the children to cottage scheme at Shorshuna, Behala. Today, they have grown up to be productive citizens. Mahila Seva Samiti, under the auspices of the Government of India, followed the same kind of program later. Ashokadi strongly believed in women's empowerment. Under her patronage, a fair, Woman 88, was organized in Kolkata by Swayambhur. The next year, a craft bazaar was held at Kolkata Maidan. Our handicrafts worker from Khipai brought mats and tools to Kolkata for the fairs. The buyers appreciated the crafts and became aware of the talent that lay hidden in our villages. In 1989, Ashoka sent some AIWC members, including me, to Bhubaneswar for a uniform leadership training program. It was a great experience. She joined us there later. From there, we went to the field visit to Center for Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust, KGNMT at Shottobhamapur village, district Cuttack. A decade after that, they carried out remarkable relief work under Ashoka's guidance after the Orissa super cyclone of 1999, which had caused devastation in the coast and interiors of the state. In December 1990, the annual conference of AIWC took place at Hastings House in Kolkata. Shobana Ranade was elected president, succeeding Ashoka. The counting of votes took place in the campus of Hastings House till midnight. Under Ashoka's supervision, it had been a very hectic day for her and for me. A vivid memory is that she saw to it that all the workers were given hot soup on that cold winter night. On the afternoon of December 6, 1992, I went to Ashoka's house for some work. There had been a tragic death in her family, and she was naturally very disturbed. But she went on working. Mr. S.N. Menon, her son-in-law, and the Chief Minister's Special Secretary rushed back from Writers' Building and told us that the Babri Masjid had been demolished and the curfew had been imposed in Kolkata and adjacent areas. I finished work and rushed home. On the days that followed, looting, killings occurred in different localities of Kolkata, Tangra, Park Sakas, Dhobighat, Pilkana, Kidirpur. We, the members of Mahila Seva Samiti, sought permission from the local Thana to carry out relief work under Ashoka's guidance. We collected milk powder, rice flakes, jaggery, clothes, medicines, and ORS to distribute among the victims who had taken shelter at Bengal potteries on Convent Road in some school buildings. The Deputy Inspector General IB helped us, especially with transport. The season being winter, I remembered we bought 100 blankets from Boro Bazar and distributed them among women and children. The Ramakrishna Mission supplied midday meals. One day, Srimati Geeta Mukherjee MP, as distinguished member of the CPI, came to see our work. She recalled how Ashoka had taught her swimming many years back when they were in East Bengal. Ashoka was a great human being who stood by anyone in need or on a selfless mission. Anu Bandyopadhyay, an eminent Gandhian activist, had an unusual relationship with Ashoka. She used to knit woolen mufflers and scarves and sell them to NGOs like ours. She herself used to wear hand-woven pajama kurtas and wear barefoot. Sometimes she used to get so angry with the evils of the society that she refused to eat for days. She once broke her fast at Ashoka's house after eating a bowl of paesh in the presence of Tara Gandhi, Gandhiji's granddaughter. When Gopal Krishna Gandhi came to Calcutta as governor, Ashoka requested him to meet Anu Bandyopadhyay. Then on her deathbed. I take this opportunity to pay my humble homage to a soul as great as Ashoka. Thanks to all of you for listening to me. Thank you.
So this is what the family had sent, and all very interesting clips about the work and the activities and the person that Srimati Ashoka Gupta was. I mean, with this, we come to the end of the recordings and the presentations, but I think now the forum is open. And especially, I would like to again thank Professor Narayani Gupta for everything that she has done for this program. Thank you, Nara.
Thank you, Narayani ji. Thank you very much.
Very
you,
kind
thank
of you.
you.
I did nothing, and I always felt she was there with me and saying, "You've got that wrong," or "You have left out something." I miss her terribly. So do we all. But in a way, because she lived life so fully,
Yeah.
the past and the present come together, and you don't feel we're talking about something very far off. She's still there. Thank you for this.
Thank you for that
In
input.
fact, Narayani ji, I liked what you said, that she was not just the mother-in-law to you, but she was a great friend to you. It was very nice to say
Yes,
that.
she really was.
Now with this, I think we open the floor. Some of the patrons are there. Mrs. Beena Jan was very closely associated with her, as I can see. Beena ji, over to you. You would like to say something? आप बोलना चाहेंगी?
Few words, I would like to say a few words because time is very limited. But I have very good memory. I worked with her, and I have very good memory. And as the other speaker said, that she was a short-tempered, very short-tempered, but very loving, very loving. And the last speaker has mentioned that she sent the youngsters to different training and programs, and she sent me to Iraq to attend international conference. At that time, the 2 tickets came from there, but she said, no, my young people should go and attend. So I went there, and one person, I forgot the name, from Allahabad, we both went there, attend this conference. And I have a lot of memories because I think I was very close to her. And this is mess, जो हमारी canteen है जिसको हम mess बोलते हैं. She said, no, ARWC will run this mess, Mahila mess. And she gave me this responsibility that you have to start. But this main building was on contract. So main mess was on contract. So she said, no, we have to start our own. And she forced me, and I started in Babnugar. Babnugar, there is a back room, and I started that canteen with few utensils. And maybe some of the staff was from that time, or maybe they must have retired. And we started that mess and canteen. And like that, many things. And she took me in some other places also. And I'm not prepared to say, but I know lots. And I also want to mention that she was very fond of sweets. And in winter, on her table, in one plate, she used to keep that revdi. And again and again, she put it in her mouth. So a lot of things is there, and a very loving person. And sometimes she called me in Kasturi. At those days, Kasturi was in Pandara Roadhouse. And she said, you come and meet me here. So every day she used to like to, I should meet her. She never missed that I should not meet her. So this was her. I don't know why she was so affectionate, and she has a soft corner for me. I have no idea. But I'm very lucky that I worked with her and learned a lot from her. But she never shouted, never talked roughly with me. Never. She gave me lot of love and affection.
Thank you, Veenaji. That was so interesting. I think both of you are alike in some manners. That's why she liked you so much. I can see that, the likeness between the two of you. We have some more. I think Mrs. Veena Kohli is there. Anyone else? Veena ji, another patron of ours, Mrs. Veena Kohli. Veena ji, are you there? I mean, I thought you. No, I think she has. I think the program went on for a while. There anyone else would like to say something? Padma ji?
And just a small one incident. When I came to AWC office from Vienna, Ashoka Gupta ji asked me to collect some funds from Vienna for the home, for the Brindavan home. And then I went back and I was successful. I could collect quite a good sum from the United Nations Women's Guild. They all donated because we showed some pictures. And she was quite happy when I came next time. And I went to Brindavan home along with, I think, Sheila Sengupta ji. So that was a happy memory. I was really fortunate to be guided by Ashoka ji and Shobhana Rane ji. I really remember all those good days. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you, Padma ji. So funds came from far and wide. That is the. That's how it works. Anyone else? Anyone who would want to share some memories or some incidents, or otherwise we can close the program for the day.
1 minute.
Someone.
Yuthika ji.
Yes.
Yuthika ji.
Yes.
I would also like to remember her.
Yeah,
for
Shivani
whole
ji.
of her life. Yes.
Yes,
Because I was Shivaji. I think there was a annual meeting in Anando, Juhu. If I am not mistaken, it was in 1989.
89.
Yeah.
And that was the time my branch got affiliated.
Yeah, at that time, Gulmar branch. But I well remember I was sitting behind my seniors in Dubai and Kumud. They were my seniors and they were all on this sky of AIWC. I was sitting behind them and meeting started. At that time, from the stage, Ashoka ji said that I can see some new faces and I would like to call her. That you become the minute secretary. I was looking around that who is she's talking about. And then she said that yes, with green sari, I'm talking about you. I see you for the first time and I would like to take the note of the minutes. I was a little bit upset that I cannot. To my seniors, I have said that all these South Indians, because Sarojini ji, Lakshmi ji, they were coming to Gujarat, so I know all of them. That these people, whatever they say, I cannot clearly understand. So how can I write the minutes? And they said that whatever it is, you write, the file is there and we are also there. Night is the worst. So it was my first entry in the stage of AIWC. Just as a delegate, I was coming, but it was my first entry. And then she said that, don't hesitate. After finishing the meeting, she said that, don't hesitate. Whenever you can get the chance, you have to take it. Always keep it in the mind that whenever in the life you get the chance, you have to take it. So I well remember her.
That was so
Thank
interesting.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shilaji, Binaji. And it's a request, Shilaji, that please tell everybody to keep their video on. So at least we can see the pictures, all of them.
Sure. For next time, we'll definitely tell.
Even now, everyone can switch on their videos. We are at the end of the program.
Yeah.
And
because all the old members.
Narayani ji, मैं बिना जानू. Narayani ji, I know you very well.
Yes.
I'm Bina Jain.
Bina
And
ji, yes, I know.
sometime I see you in IIC.
Sometimes, yes.
I never say hello because I think you will recognize me or not. But I recognize you very well.
You mustn't mind. Yes, I've been accused of that a lot.
No,
So,
and I am your
today
student.
you look exactly as you did 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I am your student and your husband's student. I want to, yeah, publicly declare that.
Well, I'm proud of you, Yutika.
Yes.
You did this very, very well today. I'm so happy.
Thank you, ma'am. All your you gave the whole script. It's all here, and you organized. It was a pleasure reading that.
Thank
It
you.
was amazing. Very well done. So I can't. I mean, how can I forget? But at that time, Ashoka Di was not. I mean, it was in 90. When did she?
She
I was
passed away in 2009.
eight.
So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And she used to come to our house fairly often when in the 90s, till 90, early 99. Yeah, that was the last.
Because I used to come as a research associate. Remember, I was doing with Professor Patsarthi Gupta. We were doing that project on towards freedom volumes in the ICHR. It was such a pleasure, and your lovely coffees and the food that you gave every time. How can I forget? I mean, those were the days. That was the Guru Shishya Parampara sort of,
We were all enjoyed the whole experience of it, and
yeah,
it
so
colonized
nice.
the whole house.
Yeah. So, anyone else? Sheilaji, can we close the program now?
Yes, we can close the program. Yeah.
We close formally. I would invite our Joint Secretary.
Supriya.
Yeah, Joint Secretary IWC, Mrs. Supriya Bhalerao, for the formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Supriya.
Thank you, Yutika. This is Supriya Bhalerao, Joint Secretary AIWC. Deliver the formal vote of thanks from my side. First and foremost, I would like to thank Mrs. Sheila Kakde for starting this webinar series, which has become a unique program of AIWC, starting in pandemic times and continuing till date. It is not just a storytelling session, but it's a very interesting, inspiring to know how much work our past presidents have done in pre and post independence period and helped the organization to grow to this today's shape. Today's session has been the 22nd session, and we have presented on 32nd President Dr. Ashoka Gupta. Thank you, Sheila ji. We feel very happy as a team to do research, put the speakers together, and whatever research we do, present it to the participants as particularly our members. I thank Mrs. Kuljit Kaur, our Secretary General, and Mrs. Rehana Begum, our Treasurer, for their full support and participation always. I now thank all the guest speakers. Firstly, Professor Sati Chatterjee, who is the patron of our Calcutta branch. Madam, you have really wonderfully explained how Dr. Ashoka Gupta's work journey was. And I thank you profusely for that on behalf of AIWC. And now thank Srimati Deepali Sarkar, the principal of the school that our Ashoka had started. It was a nice speech giving us a lot of information. I thank you, Mrs. Yasmin Sengupta, for talking about Ashokadi's work in Mahila Seva Samiti and Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust. It was a wonderful speech and we really enjoyed it. I thank Srimati Kumkum Muzumdar, the present State Commissioner of Bharat Scouts and Guides of West Bengal. It is completely a different area of work for girls, and you really make a lot of difference to the lives of girl guides. And I'm happy what you talked about that, and we should have more girl guides in today's period also. I thank Mrs. Kajal Rekha Samanto, the president of Bhagavati Devi Mahila Samiti, the AIWC branch, which was started at Midnapur by Ashoka Di herself. Thank you very much, Kajal Rekha ji, for putting the PPT together and giving me some information and pictures. I would like to thank the family members now who have made an effort to put their thoughts together on their mother or grandmother or aunt, and also audio recording their pieces as they're far away and the time of our meeting is odd for them. To start with, I would thank Dr. Narayani Gupta for doing all the groundwork for a long time of contacting all the family members, encouraging them to give their pieces, and putting the entire thing together, including the script. Thank you, Dr. Narayani ji. Without you, this wouldn't have been complete. Thank you. I thank Mrs. Kasturi Gupta Menon, the daughter of Ashoka Di, who has done a lot of work for artisans of India and received a recognition in the form of Kamala Award. That is, we feel proud of it. I thank you very much for your time and effort, Kasturi ji, to give your piece too. I thank Mrs. Apla Gupta Egan, who has not only spoke nicely about her mother, but also involved herself in this program by giving her photographs of her grandmother and her children for the library archives of AIWC. And, which helped me to put that PPT together. And thank you, Sheila ji, for presenting it. I thank Himadri Gupta, Ashoka Di's grandson, to speak about his grandmother. It was great. It is great to know that grandchildren have taken interest in joining what the grandmother did and be a part of her mission. Thank you, Himadri, for your effort and time. You seem to have enjoyed the trips with your grandmother at that young age. I also thank Maushmi Sengupta ji, Ashoka Di's junior colleague, and for sharing those lovely experiences of yours. I thank now our patrons, Mrs. Beena Jain and Mrs. Veena Kohli, for being with us in this webinar series that really is an encouragement. And you really spoke nicely about Dr. Ashoka Gupta Beena ji. We would love to hear such memories, the casual ones and interesting ones. I thank all the vice presidents, the zonal organizers, the MICs, and all the participants of this webinar to be with us today. Now I thank our host, Dr. Yutika Mishra. Last but not the least, you've done a wonderful job, Yutika. Thank you so much. On behalf of AIWC and everyone present here.
Thank you, Supriya. Thanks are due to you also for that special invite and being, a support all through. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was indeed another wonderful episode today. We meet again on 27th April with our another amazing personality, another past president. She's still there and was there with us for a while, and she still is there. She will be joining with us, in fact, on 27th April. Kyo, Sheila ji?
That's great.
Yeah.
She won't be able to?
She won't be able to.
श्रीमती शोभना राणा डे, जिनके बारे में हमने अभी सुना, वो थी अशोका जी के साथ ही. She was working, and we also heard in the last clip that how the elections took place in Kolkata and all that, So she was elected then. So on 27th April, we are going to hear about Shobhana Ranade ji, and would have been good if we would have got her blessings in person, but let's hope.
She might join, but she may not be able to speak or say anything. Her health is not permitting her to give a speech or talk,
Okay.
But
at least we'll get to see her.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm requesting Shobha Supekar, who is arranging, to at least get her video clip, go home and get her video clip, blessing us all.
Yes.
That is what is required for all of us.
See her also.
That would be really good. So thank you, everyone. So we come to the end of the program. Namaskar. Have a good day. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody, for spending so much time for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila ji, and everybody.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Nice meeting everybody.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Such a interesting and webinar for past presidents.
Thank you so